power, the right, and the obligation to make sure we spend the taxpayers' money wisely.
Hi, I'm Bob Menendez. Welcome to Report to the People. New Jersey's families are facing our most serious economic crisis in generations. 2.6 million jobs lost nationwide last year, more than 35,000 of them in our state. The highest nationwide unemployment rate in 16 years, people working hard and saving all their lives just to see their retirement accounts shrink so much that they're afraid to look. Entrepreneurs having trouble getting even small amounts of credit to keep themselves afloat and help their businesses grow, and thousands of families continuing to lose their homes. As we have gotten to work in this new session of Congress, addressing the economic crisis isn't just job number one, it's job number 1, 2, and 3. In an economic situation as tough as this one, the federal government has to use every tool it can to propel economic growth, create jobs, and ease the squeeze on the middle class. The economic recovery package we have crafted with President Obama focuses on creating jobs through rebuilding critical infrastructure and investing in energy independence. And it also extends unemployment benefits and puts money back in the pockets of hardworking Americans. There are a number of critical, ready-to-go projects in New Jersey that will get a kickstart, and there are millions of New Jerseyans who will be buoyed by the unemployment insurance and tax relief. Today we have two guests joining us to discuss how the economic recovery package can help get our economy moving again. Chris Calore is now CEO of the New Jersey School Development Authority after serving as our state's transportation commissioner. And Jim Kessler is the Vice President for Policy at Third Way, a respected nonprofit organization that has devoted significant time and resources to advancing policies for the middle class. We're lucky to have them with us today, and thanks as we report to the people.
It's our pleasure.
Great to have you both. Chris, let me start with you. This new role that you have as the CEO of the School Construction Corporation, obviously a mission New Jersey wants to pursue anyhow, but what does the economic recovery package do for your plans, for example, in New Jersey with Governor Corzine, that might not have happened without it?
Well, as you know, Senator, because you've been a tireless leader in getting federal funding back to New Jersey, school investment is critical because it provides a foundation for our state, because our kids need the kind of education that prepares them to be part of the 21st century workforce. But part of that is to make sure we provide them the proper learning environment. This federal stimulus bill will be supplementing what the governor is already doing in New Jersey by making sure we get access to, hopefully, at least $400 to $500 million dollars so we can create jobs, tens of thousands of jobs, and at the same time make the kind of crucial investments in schools that have frankly not been made in several years.
And when we talk about these immediate jobs that will be created, it's obviously a wide range of tradespeople, but it'll also be architects and the people in their offices. It'll be engineers. It'll be the suppliers of all of the materials that school will be built with. And the list goes on and on. It has a ripple effect.
It certainly does. And in fact, Rutgers University just did a study for the state in which they basically said that every $1 billion for school construction will create about 8,000 new jobs, and in New Jersey. And to the extent that steel comes from Pennsylvania, for example, those jobs are outside the state but are not counted in there. But just from a New Jersey standpoint, $1 billion will create about 8,000 jobs. To put that in perspective, out of the 35,000 jobs we lost in 2008, 4,200 jobs were construction related. So to the extent that this stimulus money is targeted, and the extent that the stimulus money will go towards shovel-ready projects, it'll create the kind of ripple effect that you're talking about.
And we in New Jersey, we have some of these ready to go, right? It's not when we talk shovel-ready,
that is correct.
Sounds like we clearly meet the definition of schools that are ready to go.
In fact, tomorrow we have $500 million worth of projects ready to go that don't have funds. The governor is already committed to spending $1.9 billion of state money to build schools. But again, to put it in perspective, there's 2,300 schools in New Jersey. 155 of those are 100 years or older.
155 or over 100 years old. One of the compelling reasons for school modernization.
Absolutely, I would say.
Turn of the, not this century, we just turn of the last century. So,
That's right.
Jim, a centerpiece of the recovery package is talking about making work pay and putting money in the hands of working class, middle class families. Talk to us about that component of it and why that's important in the context of economic recovery as well.
Well, this is a real middle class recession. If you look at what has happened to the middle class in the last year, typical families, they've seen plummeting values, as you talked about, in their number one investment, their home, and they've seen plummeting values in their number two investment, their retirement accounts. So this is a real shock to middle class people who have been really successful. One of the reasons that I believe that this recession has occurred is we've had an upside down tax code for the last 8 years. We've had a tax code that basically said, look, here's our philosophy. The economic engine of this country are very, very wealthy people. If they do well, then eventually the middle class and everybody else will do well. And even before this recession, the middle class was basically kind of muddling along. We actually need a tax code that says the engine of the economy is the middle class. And the making work pay provision of the economic recovery package is actually starting to change that philosophy that says we're going to build our economic recovery from the middle out. We're going to make sure that there's middle class tax relief so that there is at least $500 or $1,000 for, typical working families, typical middle class working families to ease their financial burden, to maybe pay off some debt, maybe to spend some more money, but actually return some normalcy to the tax code so that the middle class is first. And the middle class is eventually, they're going to be the ones that lead us out of this recession.
And when we talk about the middle class, I asked my staff to put together a breakdown of how New Jerseyans fare in terms of their brackets, in terms of where they fall in terms of income, and therefore, and when you look at all of the taxpayers of the state, the huge bracket of where the taxpayers are is in that middle class. And so when you talk about a tax code that makes work pay and that starts from the middle class and builds this foundation of this economy, upwards, it's that section we're talking about. It's it's the school teacher, it's the sanitation worker, it's the a whole host of people who fall in that category. The construction worker, the nurse. Those are the people who we're talking about.
If you look at working age people, if you look at people between the ages of 25 and 60 in this country and in New Jersey, the median household income, the typical middle class family, they earned nationwide $68,000. And in New Jersey, it was a little bit higher. It was about $72,000 or $73,000. So I think that you can look at middle class about $30,000 on either side, $40,000 to $100,000. Maybe it extends a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But they've been in a donut hole of federal economic policy and tax policy. If you earn $40,000 in this country, generally you've been too rich to qualify for most government programs like earned income tax credit, certainly things like food stamps, but Pell Grants, a lot of college aid. And you certainly don't earn enough, in that 40 to 100,000 range to benefit from trickle down economic policies. So the provisions in this recovery package, and there's a college tuition tax cut in there, there's some child care tax credits, and there's the make work pay tax cut, and there's a home buyer tax credit. It's targeted for folks that are in that donut hole, the people that just don't really generally get that much from government, that 40 to 100 or 40 to 120,000 range. And those are the folks that are bearing the brunt of this economic crisis, and they're the folks that are going to lead us out of it.
Now, the way we contemplate doing this also is more expeditious in terms of how they get that relief. We had the round earlier in the previous administration about rebate checks, and that whole process. And I know I worked very hard in trying to get people to make sure that they applied for their rebate checks, and seniors and others who didn't think that they were eligible but were trying to get that money in, because one of the ways we want to stimulate the economy is actually putting money in the hands of people to make their own personal decisions. But in doing so, there are needs that they have, and very often they'll use that money to meet their needs. If they're kids, they may need a new coat. It's been a harsh winter so far, and it's early in the process. They may need something else. We're contemplating doing it in a way in which they'll see it directly in their paycheck, so we've bypassed all of the costs. That's probably a smart way to do it.
It's a smart way of doing it. It's a little bit of a raise for everybody rather than a particular bonus check. And you're right, people, if you're on a budget, yes, sure, it's nice to get one big check, but you know, if you're meeting a budget, it's nice to see in your paycheck that you're getting an extra sum of money, $40, $60, et cetera, that can go to the things that you know you use week to week, day to day. So I think it's a big advantage. It's a better delivery system than done in the past, and you know, hopefully it'll be one of the things that helps the middle class feel like they're returning to normalcy in this economy. Because when they feel that there's more normalcy, there's going to be more confidence, and they'll start beginning to do the things that you know will invest in themselves. You know, maybe eventually doing that new addition on their kitchen, or doing a repair, or buying a big ticket item that starts to lead us out of this economic mess.
Create some demand
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, because if we have demand, then that creates other jobs. You know, obviously, whatever those items are, or that service that they're looking to purchase, you know, they need a new cabinet, there's a kitchen facility, you know, appliance that's not working and needs to be, you know, either repaired and or replaced. Not only is the appliance, but the installation. So again, ripple effects and creating jobs.
Which is why when there's a lack of aggregate demand in the private sector, investing in public works projects creates the kind of aggregate demand that only government can create.
Well, I wanted to turn to you now and say, you know, I met with the President's nominees for the Council of Economic Advisors that President Obama will have. And I asked them, what are you telling the President that we have to do? And they said, well, we need a significant infusion by the government. It has to be big, it has to be bold, and it has to be smart. And I want to talk about the smart part of it as it relates, for example, to school construction. Because, you know, before you said all of these projects that have over 100 years old. And it doesn't simply mean that because it's 100 years old you couldn't use the building, but you probably don't have a new science laboratory that meets with the challenges of the present day in preparation for these young people who are going to be the basis of the economy. Give me some examples of what we're having kids in New Jersey face when they go to school every day in some of these schools that speak. We say education is important, and we send them to schools that speak of a totally different value.
Right, and I'll give you two extreme examples. In Camden, where we have schools which are where the teachers are committed, the principals are working hard, but they lack the most basic supply of water. They don't have drinking water, but water has to be shipped in by bottles. Now, what is that?
This is into an existing school.
It's into an existing school.
Because the pipes are obviously corroded.
The pipes are about almost 100 years old, and to make sure the kids are drinking safe water, the superintendent and the school board, rightfully so, made a decision to ship water into the city instead of subjecting them to drinking the water out of a tap. Now, if that is an indictment on our education system as a whole, and I'm now talking about the infrastructure part of it, I don't know what else is. Now, in your backyard in Jersey City, there's an elementary school called Public School 20. It's a 4-story building, and it's like I said before, it's an elementary school. Kids have to go from 4 stories all the way to the basement in order to use the bathroom, because that's the only place where there's a bathroom in the building. On top of that, there's constant water infiltration problems. Classrooms are being taught in closets. I mean, these are not, I'm just not cherry picking one or two bad examples. You find these kinds of problems spread out throughout the state and the country, in fact. So what the governor has said is that he is going to aggressively invest in school infrastructure, and that's why the legislature passed a $3.9 billion bond issuance to do that. But we realize fully that that is still not enough money, and that's why we need federal help.
So when the federal government comes along as part of its job creation economic recovery plan and says school construction is going to be eligible for that, and actually invests some of that money in that effort, we're getting several benefits. We have the immediate impact of creating jobs, all the ones we described before, all the tradespeople, the engineers, the architects,
Right.
all the suppliers, all those people. But we're also going to help the property taxpayer, because at the end of the day, if the federal government is doing that and creating a school in a much needed school district, that means the local property taxpayer isn't paying for it. So we're giving them some direct relief there. And we are laying the environment for children to learn and fulfill their God-given potential in the best of ways. So it's being the smart part of the Council of Economic Advisors' suggestion that it has to be big, bold, but it also has to be smart.
That's correct. In New Jersey, we're fortunate to have one of the best education systems in the country. But the question is, what are we going to do to, one, preserve it, number two, to build on it? And that's what requires bold and smart investments. Yeah. That's what the governor's committed to, and I know that's what you're fighting for.
Now, some of the other provisions, Jim, that we're talking about, you mentioned a couple before, beyond the $500 individual, $1,000 coupled directly to the middle class. You mentioned some of the credits that are being, you want to expound upon that a little bit? And then also we've got that package that we're in there trying to help the business sector stimulate jobs.
Exactly. So, look, one of the things that I think is really important, and it's in there for 2 years, and I hope we can extend it and make it bigger and longer, is, you know, a much more generous college tuition tax cut. So there is a college tuition tax cut now equaling $2,500 for the first $4,000 that people pay in college tuition, up to, if you're a household earning up to $160,000 in household income, because, college, it's increased faster than inflation tuition every year since 1980. It's increased faster than healthcare. It's faster than any other consumer item we have. And what could be more important to the success of this country than having more college students? What's important about that tax credit is what we want to make sure doesn't happen in this recession is that people postpone the dreams and aspirations they have for their children. They say, times are tough, we're going to delay college for a year, or we're going to send you to a college that maybe you could have gotten into, the college of your choosing, but we need to go cheaper here. We need to do for college what we've done in other areas. In one area is in home ownership, which is make it much more easy and much more affordable for people to get to and through college. And that means people who are, working, who don't qualify for Pell Grants, who are not low income. And this credit, this is really a down payment for a new investment. It's very important. And there's a couple of other items in there. Child care. Look, if both parents work or single parent family, like child care, that's not an option. It's a must. Well,
or in this economy where a parent may have lost a job and they're looking for a job, you've got to get out there to be able to look for a job. You need child care in that respect. Or maybe you had, in a couple, you had one working, and now, based upon the challenges of that, you might need the second spouse to go ahead and take a job, look for a job in a tough market.
Yep.
And so again, you need the child ability to have daycare or child care at the end of the day to make it happen.
I mean, my own situation, I have a child. She's in preschool, daycare. It's at the YMCA. This is not gold-plated. It's fine. It's wonderful. I love it. It's not gold-plated child care. It's $900 a month.
No.
That's a lot of money. And it's something that my wife and we have to do. This is, if we're both going to work, and this is something that families have to do. Look, we're in a new rules economy where it used to be in the past, it's very typical that a woman, a mother with children under the age of 6, most likely she was in the home. Today, 2/3 of women with children under the age of 6, 2/3 of them are in the workforce, and most of the men are in the workforce. This is not a luxury. This is a necessity. And I'm glad to see that this recovery package is starting to move to understand that new pressures that families have of balancing work and family, and taking care of things, helping with child care, helping with college, helping with being a home buyer again.
And even when we help with child care so that people can get out and either maintain their jobs or seek jobs, we're also obviously creating new opportunity for teachers and aides and others who are going to provide that child care. So there's a stimulus element of that while we take care of a societal benefit.
That's right, and it was what you were saying also with the modernization. Like, one of the things that I think it makes this package a smart package, it's tilted heavily towards investment. Investing in schools, investing in roads and bridges, investing in a new energy grid. These are things that are going to pay off for the United States for years to come. Investing in college, investing in buying a home. These are things that are going to pay off for families for years to come. It's not just consumption, it's investment.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the benefits I hope that we'll see is obviously 100-year-old schools, for example, are not very energy efficient. And one of the things we're trying to do through the economic recovery package is to have a down payment on creating the energy efficiency, which means, of course, the best energy we can produce is the one we don't use at the end of the day, having less demand of that energy, making both buildings, appliances, and others more efficient. Of course, creating the new renewable energy sources that will break our addiction to foreign oil and keep money here at home in America. But I would assume that one of the benefits that we're going to get, in addition to school modernization, is we're going to have energy savings through new schools.
That's right. And in fact, we have a consistent policy to do whatever we can to reduce the carbon footprint of any school we build. We try to institute geothermal utility facilities within it. We haven't done solar power panels as much as I would like, for instance, or the governor wants, but under the stimulus package, as I've seen it drafted anyway, about 25% of the money that comes to states is supposed to be designated for renewable energy sources. That has not only a benefit of reducing the carbon footprint, but it will help school districts better cope with their budgets, especially in a downturn like that we're currently facing. They are working very hard to cut their budgets to meet the lowering revenue numbers.
So reducing carbon footprint, meaning less emissions that
Right.
we're going to use, less energy sources that are going to ultimately pollute our environment, and saving money for the taxpayers in the long term. So here's an example of creating jobs now to help us with our economy, create an opportunity for demand, but doing the smart things in the long term, great environment for kids to learn, be prepared to help the nation meet the challenges in the future of a competitive society, reduce energy costs for the taxpayers moving forward, and also stop less emissions. That
Right.
really is a smart element.
That's exactly right. And New Jersey is fortunate to have many solar power companies that manufacture in New Jersey. So to the extent that we can create and support jobs in New Jersey, that obviously keeps our unemployment numbers
Now, I want
down.
you to take your present hat off as the CEO of the School Construction Corporation and go back to your very recent role when you were the Commissioner of Transportation, for which you did an excellent job. You know, just look at that element of the package, you know, highways, roads, bridges, mass transit. New Jersey is probably an example of every mode of transportation, but also a lot of antiquity in there
correct.
as well. Give us a quick sense of that, of what, you know, from your experience for the last several years doing that job before this one, of school construction. Tell us how you see that working.
Infrastructure, whether it's schools or roads or highways, is the common denominator of any economic growth strategy. You've got to make sure you have a stable and viable infrastructure system, because that is what is going to make sure that you can move goods and people through safely and efficiently. We're blessed to have one of the greatest ports in the United States, North Jersey and South Jersey. But we have got to make sure we invest in infrastructure and maintain it. We were fortunate to inherit a multimodal system, or a system that had rails, bridges, and trains. But the question is, what are we going to do to repair them, and what are we going to do to improve them? And that's why the stimulus package is so important. I'll just give you one category of transportation projects which sorely need money. Bridges. We have 2,500 bridges in New Jersey. 313 of those are what we call structurally deficient, meaning that they need significant help to make sure they continue to be an operating bridge on a very important system. That's the kind of projects where the money that you're fighting for will go towards, not a bridge to nowhere.
Yeah. And, you know, some of these bridges, you know, it's not just the infrastructure, but one of them, the Pulaski, 85,000 motorists a day, links us to a region, not just all the way from New York to the port region you talked about, megaport of the East Coast, over 200,000 jobs, $25 billion of economic activity. It's the type of bridge that collapsed in Minnesota. It doesn't seem that we have that degree, but it has some serious repairs. So at the end of the day, another smart example of getting people to be able to get to work, to go to a hospital, to meet, to catch up with family, but at the same time creating economic opportunity by the jobs that will be created and the long-term benefit that will come from having those transportation networks still open.
That's right, and that's exactly why the stimulus package is so important, not just for tomorrow, but the problems that exist today.
Jim, in the last 2 minutes or so that we've got, the recovery package also looks at some business tax incentives to stimulate the private sector. It's not just about governmental spending in investments that are smart and long-term, but also the private sector. Can you talk about those for us, Ray?
There's a whole set of business tax incentives. Look, and for a lot of folks, business has ground to a halt. You know, they've really just been frozen in place. They're unable to get credit, and they've really stopped investing, and they've had a very, very difficult year. So there's a series of tax incentives, and they get into the very sort of technical weeds of, you know, depreciation and how you're going to deal with losses and that sort of thing. But the goal of this, and it's very important, is to get business moving again and allow them to kind of invest in new research and development, you know, a better R&D credit, to invest in new equipment, and to be able to do so in a way that allows them to, you know, purchase more things and get the economy moving again, and also get a little bit more tax benefits than they've gotten in the past, you know, enough to hopefully have them to make the decision that, you know, they're going to move forward and invest and create jobs and start, you know, getting the economy moving in the right direction again.
It's another opportunity for them to enhance their business and to get, through tax relief, resources, particularly in a market in which we still have a credit crunch. It's tough to get access to credit for even businesses that have fared well over a long period of time. And at the same time, by getting these tax benefits now and creating money within the company, stimulating them in a way that creates the demand that we were talking about for either a good or a service that someone else is going to provide, and therefore having this ripple effect. Very last moment, 50 seconds. Some people concerned about the size of the recovery package. Economists seem from both spectrums to say it needs to be big, from conservative to liberals. Comment on it?
This is totally uncharted territory. We have never done anything to this magnitude before. It might be too small. It's possible that it might be too big, but I will say this. When you go into the hospital, let's say you're sick, they give you antibiotics. Sometimes the next day you start feeling better as soon as you start taking it. Our economy, it's in very bad shape. This economic recovery package, I believe, is going to make a big difference, but we're not going to feel it tomorrow or the next day. It's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while
to have the positive effect.
Well, on that note, let me thank Chris Caluri and Jim Kessler, and thank you all for watching as we report to the people.